What's up, guys? We are kicking off a brand new series this week called Canceled. And so when you think of that word, probably a lot of things come to mind. Maybe culture cancel or different things. And so what I want you to do right now is I want you to pause this video right off the bat. And if you could cancel certain things right now, what would it be? Maybe for some of you it's like Crocs. Maybe for some of you it's pandemics. Maybe for some of you it would be Kevin Durant. Maybe a TikTok trend. Pause this video, talk about something you would cancel right now if you had the power to. So in the past few years, terms like online shaming and call-out culture, even cancel culture has become very popular. But it's not always clear sometimes what these words mean when you think about calling someone out or shaming someone or even canceling. So here's what we're gonna do. I know we just paused the video, but we're gonna do it again. Pause this video, and I want you as a group to define those three things. What does shame mean? What does call out mean? What does cancel mean to you, to your friends, to the culture that we're living in? So pause this video right now and talk about it. So these terms can somewhat be confusing. Maybe when someone in your group said something, you're like, I don't know if that's necessarily what it is, but maybe you came to a conclusion or a consensus of, hey, this word means this. And sometimes I think the confusion comes with you can interchange them. Like you can swap them out for another example. Some people say canceled as like a joke. Like gross, you like pineapple on your pizza, canceled, right? Maybe that's a terrible example, but whatever. But some fuel celebrity dramas with hashtags like Chris Evans is over party. None of you would ever want to cancel Chris Evans, hopefully. Some of you use social media to hurt each other. Some of you maybe use it to laugh or get revenge. Other people use call out or cancel for like legitimate reasons, especially public figures, so to speak, who said or did something very harmful. Anyway, as we look at these words, what I want to do is kind of like, I want to give you a base definition so that we're all on the same page as we talk about this stuff over the next couple of weeks. So when we look at call out, we're saying to publicly hold someone accountable for something harmful they said or something they did. Like sometimes we all need to be called out for stuff we say or do, but sometimes it is possible to be too eager to point those out and call them out for their mistakes. When we say shame, what we're saying is this: to mock, embarrass, or humiliate somebody. And this could be anything from posting a meme or just doxing someone, posting their private information publicly, if you didn't know what that meant. When we do something that hurts others, we should feel ashamed of our actions, but do we have the right to hurt or to be cruel to someone we disagree with or we're angry with? Cancel, to boycott someone. You believe needs to be held accountable for something they said or did. Boycott is an important tool for creating positive change in this world, but how do we balance accountability with grace and forgiveness? So calling out, shaming, canceling, they're all a little bit different, but where they meet is what we call cancel culture. That's hard for me to say. Maybe it's not for you, but cancel culture. It's jumbled mess where we get legitimate concerns, but they get lost in drama. They get lost in pettiness, cruelty, and even revenge. Cancel culture is usually about what happens online, but what happens is we struggle with these same issues on our offline relationships as well. With or without the internet, we all can sometimes be critical. We all can sometimes be judgmental. We all can be impatient, uncaring, even cruel. So for the next few weeks, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about 4 kinds of people most of us would rather cancel than love. And then what we can do about that besides canceling everyone that we don't like. So when I think about this, it draws me back to college, where it was like one of my first crushes. There's this girl that I really liked. And I lived off campus, and there's a guy that liked her too, and he happened to live like right next door to her. Like their dorms were right beside each other. I think rooms were just like one level apart. So I was super jealous that he had access and could just go hang out, drop down there. But it was almost like this. When we got in the same room, it was like, all right, I got to outdo this guy. I got to embarrass this guy. I got to make me look better than him so I can get the attention of this girl. And it even led me to be rude to him. It led me to be avoiding him. Like I would avoid him at all costs. Why? Because I wanted this girl to like me, and I knew he liked her. And so it was like anything and everything to get this girl's attention I was going to do. And you might think to yourself, yeah, like I get it. That's happened to me before, but it's not that bad. Like I've avoided people. I've been cruel. But if you're honest with yourself, I think what we do is we tend to cancel and avoid people more than we think we do, or we're maybe crueler to the person than we actually think we are. And so sometimes we have to pause and ask our friends. Like there's been times where Caitlin's like, man, that came across as harsh. And in my mind, I was like, oh, it wasn't that bad. But then I look back and I was like, oh, okay, maybe that was a little too far. We all have that problem. And sometimes we cancel that because we try to cancel that person or the situation we're in because it's different than us, or something that we want that they shouldn't have. Maybe a celebrity or figure who stood for things you don't like, or a former friend you couldn't seem to agree with anything about, a family member, maybe even a classmate whose opinions or beliefs maybe you're in disagreement with, a neighbor or a peer, someone who might be different or in your mind weird or scary. Someone whose culture, skin color, language, appearance, disability, it might make you feel uncomfortable, and we jump to cancel them instead of to love them or create a relationship with them. And this isn't new. Like this isn't a brand new concept that just popped up in 2020 because 2020 has been awful. This is something that has happened from the beginning of when sin entered the world. And social media might have morphed it a little bit and maybe elevated it more, but humans have been always quick to cancel people, always quick to cancel people that didn't look like them in society. And in Jesus' times, people who were often canceled by society were ones that had sinned, that got found out, ones that were sick, poor, disabled, ones that were from a different country that didn't really fit into this certain culture. And some of you are like, man, that's awful. That sounds horrible. But how often do we and people today get angry, violent towards people who have a different skin color or a different political view or a different religious belief? And if we're being honest, the answer is often. The answer is often. And during Jesus' times, there's major rift between Jewish people and Samaritan people, right? We talked about in this last series in Ephesians a big difference between Jewish people and Gentile people and how Jesus bridged that gap. And so in today's Bible story, what we're looking at is between Jewish people and Samaritan people. It's kind of like this. It's kind of the rivalry between Yankees and Red Sox, but way more intense. They're like on the opposite end of the spectrum. Major differences between the Jews and the Samaritans. And so some of these were their ethnic and culture differences, and that led them to distrust each other. Their political difference, which made them angry at each other. Their religious differences, which made them even grow to hate one another. But for hundreds of years, you would never see Jewish people and Samaritan people interact. Even like if Jewish people had to go through Samaria, they wouldn't do it. They would go around. They would even add like hours and days to their trip just so they wouldn't have to interact with this group of people. And then something amazing happened. And Jesus shows up on the scene and changes everything. Jesus shows up from God to love us and to show us how to love others. And he changes the game when it comes to this idea of, hey, well, you can't love them because they're different for you. Jesus had something different in mind. So here's what we're going to do. Pause this video. And what I want you to do is I want you to read John chapter 4, verses 1 through 26, and then 39 through 42. John chapter 4, verses 1 through 26. If you want to kind of speed read it and summarize it, you can, but John chapter 4, 1 through 26, and then jump to verses 39 through 42. Pause this video right now. So in this conversation, you see Jesus rose above the social, the religious restrictions of the day. And according to his customs, it would have been a big controversial thing for Jesus, a religious guy, to talk to an unmarried woman. And on top of that, a Samaritan woman. So you have all these things piling up on this. And despite those differences, Jesus and the Samaritan woman both did something remarkable. They had a conversation. And here's what Jesus did. Jesus valued her. Jesus valued her. And although Jews were accustomed to dismissing, hating Samaritans, Jesus never dismissed her. And he was never cruel to her. Instead, he valued her enough to start a conversation with her, to just begin a conversation. Not only to begin the conversation, but to treat her respect throughout the conversation. And then what he did was shared with her this good news that would change her life. Jesus valued this woman. And in return, guess what happened? She valued Jesus. It's crazy how that happens. Like when we value someone and show them that we care and we love, the natural response is for them to show that back to us. And we see that in what this woman did, because all those Samaritans were dismissing and hating to Jewish people. This woman valued Jesus enough to give him a drink of water, valued him enough to listen and learn. And if you read the last 3 verses, she went and told what she had learned from him. Imagine how these things could change the way people interacted with each other if they saw that. Imagine how things could change if we acted this way with people who we don't necessarily like or agree with. Everyone would have expected Jesus to ignore, to condemn, to say, I don't want to have this conversation, but he chose to love, to embrace, and to value her. Jesus challenged his followers to love people who are different from them and embrace them, instead of rushing to cancel them, dismissing them, shutting them down. Both Jesus and the Samaritan woman valued each other enough to, instead of let their differences separate them, to allow many lives to be changed. And so whether you're a follower of Jesus or not, there's this cool passage also, if you flip over a few chapters in the Bible to 2 Timothy chapter 4. And I think we can all learn from this, and it just adds to what we see in what Jesus is showing us in the Samaritan woman story. So the book of 2 Timothy is this letter that Paul wrote to a young man he was mentoring. And here's one of the things he says. So pause this video, read 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 2 through 4. So Paul, in this passage, warns Timothy that people tend to only believe and listen to things they want to hear. And he specifically is talking about theology, like people's thoughts about God, what they view, how they view God. But I think that's true about a lot of things, just beyond theology, isn't it? Like we prefer to hang out with people who like the things we like, that think or talk like we do, that behave like we behave, that believe the same things that we believe. And that's not necessarily anything wrong with that. But here's where it can go wrong: when we only spend time with those people. When we only spend time with those people, what happens is we forget to value people who are different from us. And what we forget to do is we also only learn from people who are already in agreement with us. So it's not like we're learning anything new or challenging us to see things differently. We're just feeling good about what we already believe. So the Jews and Samaritans both believed God was okay with them ignoring each other because they surrounded themselves with people who thought that same thing. Their group of people continued to feed that. And Jesus crossed this dividing line and had a conversation with this woman who was different from him. And he helped both sides see just how wrong they had been to keep this up for so long. And through their conversation, Jesus challenged both Jews and Samaritans to love each other and love people who are sometimes the hardest to love. People who are very different from us, like maybe our neighbors, who might not share the same values we do, who maybe not share our same culture or same behaviors or skin color or language or beliefs. But through Jesus' example, Jesus is challenging us to do something. He's challenging us to love people who aren't like us. He's challenging us to love people who aren't like us. And it's okay to have differences. It's okay to have differences. There's a ton of followers of Jesus throughout this world that look different than us. They speak a different language. They have a different culture. They're not something we fear. That's something that's beautiful. It makes us the body of Christ. They worship, think, pray, talk, and they act differently. And that's okay, and that's good. We're all united in Christ. In Jesus' death and resurrection, he destroyed the argument that only certain people are welcome into God's family. Jesus died for everyone. You, me, Samaritans, the people you struggle to love. In Jesus, we can invite all people to become part of his family. Doesn't matter where they come from, their socioeconomic status, their race, their ethnicity. We are called to love people who are not like us. Why? Because that's what Jesus did. And Jesus set the tone for us. So I want to take a wild guess. You're probably not mad at any Samaritans right now, right? If you are, please let me know, because that would be crazy. But you're probably not mad at any Samaritans. But I am guessing there's a person, maybe even a group of people you struggle to love because you're different from them. And you can't tell me I'm wrong, because we're in the middle of this whole election thing, and it's everywhere. And it's very evident. And so you may not hate them, but you might be overlooking and avoiding them. Or you might be uncomfortable being around them, or angry or disgusted by them. You might be afraid of them. You might be mocking them. Whatever the case, I want you to identify who that is. Who is that for you? Is it a person? Is it a group of people? And hey, I want you to share with some people in this group, why is it so hard? Like, this should be a group of people where we help each other and push each other to look more like Jesus. I get it. It's easier to cancel someone than to actually love them sometimes. It's easy to ignore them and start a conversation with them than it is to actually engage with them. It's easier to hate, mock, avoid, reach out to them. But here's the thing. That's not what Jesus is challenging us to do. That's not what Jesus is calling us to do. Just like Jesus confronted the Jews with the reality that God loves Samaritans, the people you're thinking about right now, they're loved by God too. They are loved by God too, and they may be different from you, but guess what? We're both made in the image of God. We both are made in the image of God, and that makes us valuable and worthy of love. So tonight, I want to challenge you. We have to love people who are different than us, because that's the example Jesus gave to us. I hope you have a great night talking with your small groups or with your family, and we'll see you guys next week.